I think if you ask most people who their role models are, most women would name a mixture of men and women. But, and I'm generalizing, clearly not David. I'm generalizing, so forgive me if this doesn't apply to you, but most men probably would name a list of other men. So we wanted to showcase a group of women who could be anybody's role models, male, female, young, old.
World Cup winner, Olympic gold medalist, Hope Solo.
Joining her, possibly our most eloquent counselor, Fatima Bhutto.
You haven't met our next counselor yet. She's the first female president of Mauritius, a renowned scientist who's won many awards. She was awarded the Order of the Chevalier de l'Ordre des Palmes Académiques by the government of France, the African Union Award for Women in Science, and she was also the 2007 laureate of the L'Oréal UNESCO for Women in Science Award. So please welcome for the first time to the stage, President Ameenah Gurib-Fakim of Mauritius.
Will I go here? Where's the best camera angle? I go there. Look, it said David, now it says Kate. Right. Okay, so, Hope. 2015 World Cup was the most watched women's sporting event in history. Your tenure as in the US football team has been ages. How have you seen attitudes towards women in sport change?
Well, let me start by saying I've been in the sport for 30 years. So I've seen a lot of changes. I've been on the US team for 16 long years. Thank you. You know, we as women in America, we have many opportunities to play sport. It's accepted. We're still looked at as very feminine. We're looked at as role models. We're looked at as powerful role models. And I'm very grateful for having Title IX. That gave me these opportunities. However, there's still so much work to be done. Yes, we won the World Cup. We had 22 million viewers tuning into the final, which is absolutely incredible. The men's NBA final had 15.9 million. The Stanley Cup final had 7.6 million viewers. So 22 million viewers tuned in to watch the Women's World Cup final. And 40% of all professional athletes in America are women. 40% of professional athletes in America are women. With that being said, like I said, we have a ton of challenges. Our Women's World Cup was played on turf in Canada. You would never, ever imagine a Men's World Cup being played on turf. It's played on grass. Women get 4% of media coverage in the United States. 40% are professional athletes, yet we only receive 4% of media coverage. We receive 0.5% of advertising money. So we filled our stadiums in the Women's World Cup. We had 22 million viewers tuning in, yet we only receive 0.5% of marketing dollars to help, more people watch the game. And we did that with next to no marketing money. So women's sports is here to stay, but we still have our challenges, and we have, so much room for growth, not just in America, but globally. We're faced with so many inequalities, whether that's having to make more money off the field than on the field. I make a decent living, a respectable living, and I'm very grateful for that. However, I have to decide, do I want to be an athlete first and be known as the best goalkeeper in the world, which is very important to me. And I've put my entire life's work into being the best goalkeeper that I can be. However, now, to make more money, not even a fraction of the amount that men make, I have to now ask myself, okay, do I want to pose for magazines? Do I want to involve myself with fashion? Do I want to embrace my sexuality in order to make more money? And that's not fair. It's not right, because I'm a soccer player and I'm the best at what I do.
I think And I just make a comment from me. I just think there's a real point here. We have an awful lot of business here in the room, business markets and advertisers. David and I used to be in that industry. I would just say on that point about the 0.5%, yeah? The brands that have supported men's World Cup soccer for so long and in the billions have also been caring for or accepting the rule of FIFA. So I would hold up a great big question there about money being used for good. 0.5% plays 99.5% and gave us FIFA. Yeah, okay.
Can I make another comment about FIFA since you brought it up? There's too much to be said about FIFA. But another stat that you all should know, and I think is very important, the women, we won the World Cup. And FIFA gave our federation, for winning the World Cup, the United States Soccer Federation, received $2 million. Okay, $2 million, that sounds okay. Every men's team who made it to the next round of the World Cup, which is the knockout round, made $8 million just for making it to out of group play. That's 4 games short of the final. And every losing men's team received this $8 million. We were the winning team, and we made $2 million. And if we lost in that first game of out of group play, we would have been looked at as failures. We wouldn't have received one dime, and we would have been an embarrassment to the United States.
It's not fair. Not fair. President, how wonderful to have you here, Madam President. Science, like sport, often seen as a men's arena, although I know we have a lot of delegates here who are working increasingly on gender equality in STEM subjects. What would your advice be for women wanting to reach for the career ladder, leave alone the top of the career ladder in science, or indeed in politics? And I know you were explaining to us the other night that politics is a new gig for you. Give us some advice. Would your advice to them be the same, or would be it different from the advice you might give a young man?
Thank you very much. Well, I think I'll address the easy part, which is the science part. And if you look at, I'll just look at Mauritius as an example, because it is a model which is replicable in many parts of the world. What do we see? We see many girls wanting to do science as a child, and when they go to school, they find that the books they look at, they hardly see any women scientists being portrayed. So the stereotyping is happening at a very early age, that girls should not be doing physics, girls should not be considering mathematics, for example. And this is also true in Africa, where the environment which will help the girl learn science is not there. And if you go in some countries, you'll find that even access to school is an issue, because to encourage the girl to have an education, there is not even the enabling environment. And by this I mean access to toilet, for example, which can be an issue. So you'll find that girls will be absent on average 1 week per month because they can't have access to toilet. Now, when this is done, then they move up. Those who actually make it, they go up slightly the ladder, academic ladder, and they find again the same bias. Science not being taught in the right way, science not being made interesting, so they will drop out of the science. Now, fortunately, in Mauritius, we've made some good progress because we increasingly find girls in doing the sciences at the university level. But where the problem comes up again is they earn the degree, they do very well, they go into job, be it medicine, you hardly find many women in engineering, but we lose them. We lose them because that's what I call, we increasingly suffer from what I refer to the leaky pipe syndrome. Yeah. So many women going through the pipe and very few coming out on the other side. Now, what has been the reason for this loss? The reasons are manifold, and one of them is that in the society where we all live, I think most societies have not understood that, for example, parenthood is a father and a mother issue. and all the pressures cannot be put at the doorstep of the mother. And whenever something goes wrong with the family, it's always the mother's fault. Now, just to give you a cliche, if you have a father, a man, spending time at work and coming to work and coming home at 10 o'clock at night, that man is said to be dedicated in his job. But if a woman does this, she is considered to be selfish. So this is something that...
Yeah, absolutely. It's true, absolutely.
Then, when the child is sick, it's the woman who has to take time off to look after... Anyway, we come back to the same family issue. So if we are to increase the number of women into the sciences, or into professional life for that matter, there is one very basic issue that has to be addressed. And this very basic issue is the woman needs to have house help. Period. House support. Support to help with the family. Support to us to enable her to take time off and go to work. Because increasingly the scenario is that, okay, women can take time off 9 months to no pregnancy, and then 2 years, and then they have to take another 2 years because the second child has come. So all in all, we're talking about 6 years. And then you're left with a small baby and a small child. You have to look. So by the time the woman feels she is fit to go back into the system again, it's almost 10 years. And 10 years in the world we're living in is impossible to catch up.
Especially in science.
Exactly, especially in science.
Isn't it?
And if you're not there publishing, you're not there to have your portfolio to present for the next promotion, you're done. As the French will say, les carottes sont cuites. There's no way you can get back in. So the advice that I will, and I've benefited from this because I've had very supportive parents, I've had very supportive family, so it has helped me emerge as a scientist in the first place. And to come to the other issue that we have mentioned in the world of politics, just to give some statistics, just like our friend here has given. There are only 11 women head of state and heads of government across the world. And there's only 2 who have been elected in Africa, 54 countries, 2, and 2 have occupied the post by virtue of the
patronage. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
So this is where we are in terms of statistics. Now, if you look at, again, the Nobel Prize, Nobel Prizes have been given to only 3% since, so many years that the Nobel has existed. And one lady has done marvelously well, that's of course Marie Curie, she won 2. So if you add the 2, of course the 1 person, of course there's 2 people. So these are very, very important statistics to address. And why is science, why is women in politics matter? Let's take science. Now if you look at the dynamics, let's say again for the continent of Africa, we know that women feed the continent.
Yep.
And women drive agriculture. And who are going to be the next victim in the wake of climate change? Because they are the food growers. They are going to be women. And because climate change is going to impact Africa in a massive way. And just to give you some statistics again, 60% of the world's untilled land is in Africa. And by 2030, the statistics of the World Bank say that nearly 40% of this land will no longer be possible to have agriculture in it, and this concerns the staple maize. So we are, it's in 2030, it's not very far. Right? These are the projections. So having an agreement next week in Paris is critical for the planet. And I think we have spoken quite a bit about this. Now, to come to the issue of agriculture, so women have to be empowered with technology. So there has to be the education component brought into the picture, to the fore very, very earlier on, so that they can then adopt what we increasingly refer to as smart agriculture. Right? And this will, of course, means moving the planting season according to the way the climate is changing. Now to come to the very famous world of politics. Again, very few women. And why should we have women present, not just in politics, but at the level of boards? Do we go for a quota system? Quota system will become redundant the day governments, the day people feel that you need to have at least 30% women present, because 30% to me is quota, 50% is equality, is parity. So how do we ensure that we will have these numbers? Because women really do make decisions taken different. Because we add in, well, I wouldn't say the female intuition into the fold, but if we had, for example, more men in the kitchen earlier on, you'd have more development of appliances.
Can I pick up your point there with Fatima? Fatima,
Yes.
you've spoken to us often about exactly this point the president is making here. And you've always spoken to us about about this need for all people, as the president was saying now, of men as well. And David and I have been discussing this, and one of the things that David and I have been talking about is we have this panel, as you know, and we try to show top women. And we tried this year, we said it's got to be women who are absolutely on top, who are role models, yeah? And my concern, it's a personal one, has been that if you go to women's forums, there are only women there. And we're batting around in an empty room.
Yeah.
No one's listening. And the change, we want the change, but the truth is, and to your point, Madam President, if you've got that many men rulers versus that tiny percentage of women, such a tiny percentage of women scientists, even scientists, and then leave alone acknowledged at Nobel level, it's very clear it's the majority that have to bring change. Fatty.
Well, I'll try to answer. Is this working?
Yes.
It's fine here. Okay. I'll try to answer that point, and also what you mentioned about role models. I think we talk a lot about gender, and we put gender into everything. And when we do that, we're constantly separating and insisting that there's something different. There's men here and there's women here, and we're very different and very separate and very unique. And I'm not sure that does a service to women. I don't accept that there is something different about men and women. It doesn't work for me, that idea. And if we, for 5 minutes, suspend that idea, okay, and we remove gender or sex from the equation, how then do we judge each other? How do we judge women? And I would say we ought to judge them by practice rather than by gender or by sex. When you have gender in power, for example, or when power is a part of the equation, I don't feel gender matters at all. It gets subsumed by power. Yeah. So just looking at, the sort of circus show that is the American elections at the moment, we're always told, and it's painful to watch actually, and it's not even a year.
But it's just ridiculous.
It is ridiculous, and one of the most ridiculous things is that we're always told that in this sort of nightmare scenario, Hillary Clinton's gender is really exciting, or Hillary Clinton's gender is interesting. I don't think so, actually. I think Hillary Clinton's actions are interesting, not her gender. And if we go back, right, if we go back to the beginning, what are those actions? From the time when Bill Clinton was in the White House, Hillary and Bill both worked to reduce federal funding for women and children living in poverty. When Hillary Clinton was a representative, she voted for the Iraq War. And unrepentantly, there was no sorry, I made a mistake for voting for the Iraq War and everything it's given us today. Thank you, ISIS. When Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State, she's on record as being asked about Gaddafi's murder. Now, whatever your views on Gaddafi may be, it's without question that he was brutally killed. He was not taken before a court. He was not given a hearing. He wasn't just brutally killed. He was sodomized and then killed. And Hillary Clinton is on record as saying, and I'm quoting, "We came, we saw, he died," and laughing. So I don't find her gender interesting. I judge Hillary Clinton not by her gender, but by her actions. And to the point of how do we talk about gender equality and how do we talk about boys and girls and that part of the question, I think we have to look at this idea of how we view women in this larger system. So if you look at first wave feminism, the early early years of feminism. It's about basic fundamentals, about basic rights. So the right to vote, the right to move, the right to speak, to be. Second wave takes that further and says that women, their persons and their personal lives have political value. And Germaine Greer, who's in the news a lot these days as well, but who is one of the most famous and respected second-wave feminists, says that to define feminism is a disservice, because the moment you define it, you limit it.
Yeah.
And when you limit it, you damage it. So it needs room to grow. And what I think we're in now, if one can call it a third wave or a fifth wave or whatever wave, is we're in an incredibly limited period. So women are told, and not just women, all of us are told, number one, there's something different about women. And number two, if you're a woman, there are two ways you're allowed to be a woman, right? The first is, let's say, a Western model. And the Western model traps women with this idea of sexual freedom as empowerment. So if you're looking at the Western model, if you're sexually liberated, then you're empowered. Now, the Eastern model also uses sexual freedom as a trap, just in the inverse. And what it says is that unless you reject sexual freedom and embrace purity or abstinence, then you are not empowered. But both these systems are trapping women and defining and limiting them. And the East and the West are colluding with each other in order to make us feel that there's only one of two ways to be, modern or traditional, to have things imposed on us or inherited. But they're both incorrect, and they're both incorrect because the argument is still controlled by men. And it's controlled by men. Sorry, I'm ranting. Am I ranting? I'll finish in a moment, and I'll end on a nice note. But they're controlled by men because what it does is, again, insist on difference, right? So the Eastern and the Western model insist on difference by reducing women to objects. So in the Western model, women are reduced to sexual objects. And what it means is that girls from day one have to spend an incredible amount of energy worrying about nonsense, like are they pretty enough, or are they thin enough, or are they desirable enough, or how do other people view them? The East, by the way, does exactly the same thing. It reduces women to sexual objects, but says, because of that, you can't go anywhere. And you have to stay home, and we have to watch you, and we have to protect you. But both reduce women to superficialities. So what I would say is the only way out of this is to stop accepting the separation. Number one, that men and women are different, and to insist that we judge women, or we view women on the basis of practice, on the basis of their actions, and on the basis not just of the values that they uphold, because obviously all of us uphold amazing values. I mean, no one is going to stand up and say, hello, I'm a creep, and, you know, I'm a hypocrite. But the values, not just that we uphold, but that we practice. And if you judge a woman according to practice, or a man according to practice, then you have to view them in the present, not with the lens of the past or the future, but
I could listen to you all day. Madam President, I'm going to come back to you. Then we're going to go to the floor. Whilst Madam President speaks, people who want to put a question, go to the mics now, yeah? And we'll get to what we can. Madam President.
Yeah, I think, I agree with, to some extent, with what Fatima is saying, but I think there is something that we need also to address the fundamentals, is that girls increasingly need to have access to education. And I think if you have a solid base for education for girls, a lot of these frivolities will just go out of the window, because she will know what she's able to do, she will be confident, and these are the fundamentals that we need to bring to the fold. And this is, again, many of our countries, you see countries in the East, women are subjected, women are being oppressed, because they don't know the rights, because they've never been educated. And they have not been educated for a purpose, to precisely to keep, to deny them the right.
To separate them.
To separate them. And that way you contain them. They don't have access to education, they don't know the right, they can't function.
Absolutely.
So education remains the very fundamental tool with which you can make a change. And I'm not saying this was said by Nelson Mandela.
Okay, will we go over here to number one? your name and your country, and make it a question. And may I ask you all, with all respect and courtesy, please to keep it brief.
Okay, thank you very much. Hello, everyone, and my name is Kosal. I come from Cambodia. I'm really interested about the human rights and the women's rights. And I just asking you one question in behalf, we are the men, we are attend in this event. I think it is very important for everyone. I just asking the woman first. What is your requirement from the man if you want the man respects the human rights?
Okay? That's your question. Shall we scoop up the questions and come back?
Yeah.
Yes? Okay. That's your question. Thank you. We're going to gather up the questions, and then I'll come back to Madam President, to Hope and Fatima. We'll go to question number 2, sweetheart. Short question. Okay?
I promise, Kate.
Human rights for America.
Before Sheryl Sandberg became Facebook's chief operating officer, she had to agree to the terms of her contract, including a lot of compensation. But why would she when? And she would make less than any other man who would for the same job. I mean, no man at her level would accept this first offer. So my question is, how do we, men and women, work to empower young girls, especially in man-dominated societies, to dare to negotiate offers without being scared to botch the deals?
Good, good. In the middle here, number 3, name and your country and a question.
Hi, my name's Olivia Robinson from the UK. In several countries, including my own, the UK, you actually see an increasing level of gender equality in career-related issues at the beginning of careers. However, as soon as you get to the point where women start to have children, this equality is significantly reduced. And I think the key factor is paternal leave policies. As long as we have paternal leave policies that are skewed towards women leaving work to look after children and men not leaving work,
Question.
this will continue this cultural norm. So what can we do to encourage governments and companies to offer more equal paternal leave policies?
Got it. Thank you. Over here, just a question. Just a question.
Sure. Hi, my name is Rudo, and I'm from South Africa.
Yay.
My question is, in closing the gap between men and women, should we be chasing equality? What are some of the practical ways that we can strengthen the voice and the power that women have without having to act like men and by trying to be proudly feminine?
Good question. And last one over here.
Hey, I'm Hannah from Morocco, and my question is, the more man is successful, the more he's looked at and admired. The more a woman is successful, the more jealous she is by men and women. Do you think it's correct? How can we change that without being looked at like harsh or tough?
Thank you very much. Okay, so what we'll do, shall I come to you first, Hope, then to you, Fatima,
yes.
and we'll come to Madam President to wrap up. Is that good?
Yeah, that's
Yes.
great.
Okay, go.
Well, I think firstly I'd like to speak to, I'm sorry, my young friend who was on podium 3 here, who said, she said, how do we still look feminine in a man's world? How do we not look like a man? And I don't really know what that means, look like a man. My husband told me to do this, and I'm going to. I'm a professional athlete. Do I look like a man? I know I have muscle, but I embrace my womanlyhood. I embrace everything that I am. And I think that is confident, and I think that's what more women need. And in terms of the negotiating table, I've seen it. Oftentimes we as women, we hold ourselves back because we are told we should be grateful. And what does grateful mean? We're grateful for the opportunities. We're humbled. But how do we push our negotiations to the next level without being deemed, negative or like a male or bitchy oftentimes? And we have to stick together as women and not simply be grateful, but we have to push the envelope to the next level, which means we have to stand together, we have to be strong, we have to embrace being a woman or a male, but we have to really be confident in our skill set. And it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. I don't even know what that means in terms of how do we act at the negotiating table. So for me, it's, oftentimes I've just seen women hold each other back, and we hold each other back because of the fear. And, the president at U.S. Soccer, Sunil Gulati, he's wonderful, he's great, but most everybody in U.S. Soccer Federation is male. And oftentimes we're scared to negotiate on the other side of the table against a male board.
Absolutely.
And they instill that fear in us, and they expect to win all of the negotiations because they're going to divide us as women. They're going to pull us apart because there are jealousies in women. I agree. Oftentimes, the more we succeed, many people want to pull you down, including women, because, you know, what is equality? I think a lot of my teammates want us all to be paid the same, and I don't believe that's equality. I think you should be paid based off of merit, based off of your skill set. You look at the men's game, you don't see the best goalkeeper getting paid as much as the worst goalkeeper in the league. So again, I think women hold each other back because what is equality? We shouldn't all get paid the same. We should get paid differently based off of our skill sets, our marketing value, and things like that.
Terrific. Thank you, Hope. I'm going to Fatima. And you look, I think you look fabulous. I want to be you.
I think, I don't know which question to answer, I guess. Maybe it all links up. I think the thing is practice. The thing is we're in a culture that is Buddhist. Right practice, right view, right action. That's what we have to insist on when we talk about human rights. That's how we should define women, and that's how we should define men. I think the question about how do we manage with each other professionally is interesting. And Sheryl Sandberg tells that story, doesn't she, about when a man in a sort of business setting does well and somebody says, well, congratulations. He goes, thanks. And when they do the same with a woman, she goes, oh, well, I had a great team and I had 6 people help me and 14 people behind me, and it's a team effort. I think the other thing women face is this strange thing of being polite. You know, whenever I hear the words, I didn't want to be rude, I get nervous. Because a lot of bad behavior is done to women on the back of that. I didn't want to be rude. I'm not saying we should be rude, but we should be difficult. I think we're allowed to be difficult. Just to even the playing field, you know, and certainly, you know, women are competitive, as you were saying, but, you know, Mike Tyson bit someone's ear off, you know. So why do we have to look like we're jealous of each other or we're competitive of each other? No.
That's going to go out on Twitter. Fatima Bhutto
I'm not saying bite people's ears off. I'm not saying bite people's ears off, but I feel sad when I hear women say, oh, women pull each other down, or women are jealous of each other. Sure, but so are men, actually. And we should stop insisting on this different, that we are like this and they're not. They're worse, you know, don't worry. They're much worse.
Madam President, may I come to you?
Yes, we have been discussing about rights, and I would say that women's rights are human rights, and they should be addressed as such. And then I've been hearing a lot of issues about policies. Some countries have enacted precisely policies to address the needs of paternity leaves, and I think many Scandinavian countries have done that, and they've done it. I think the impact already being felt in as much as you know, society functions better when the father is getting more and more involved with the family. I've also heard the issue about women competing with each other, and I think I agree with what Fatima has said. Women should be judged on her actions. And action in her place of work, action and also results, whatever the woman has done. And just to come back to the question that was asked earlier on, when a woman is going for promotion, she will be assessed by virtue of what she has done, by virtue of the quality, by virtue of the excellence of her portfolio. So I think the culture that we'll have, because we'll be competing, I mean, we are living in an imperfect world where competition with men will be there forever, but I think what we have to interiorize the fact that women, we are going to be there to be competing, but we have to drive the quality, the whole value of culture of excellence and quality. So because if you do quality, if you do through excellence, you will ride through it. There's no question. Quality and excellence will live on. And you'll be judged only by the quality and the excellence of whatever you do. So my advice would be to drive through quality and excellence, because when I was publishing papers, people didn't know it was coming from a woman from a very small country like Mauritius. They were assessing on the quality of the work. And this is the only way forward if you're in the sciences. But I'm sure in politics, and as Fatima said, women will be judged by your actions. And we just said earlier on with the conversation we're having, if we are going to go with the idea that at the level of politics, you're going to do things to influence and improve on human dignity, I mean, it's going to be very, very strong in terms of action. And this is what we have to do, respect the dignity of every human being. And that's the way policy should also be formulated to address this. And by addressing the dignity, you're addressing the basic needs of the person. So these are the narratives we increasingly have to address. And I'm very happy that this conversation is happening in a forum like this, because these young people, I think they will be interiorizing all these messages and taking it out to influence the world.
Terrific.
Thank you.
In closing, I would just like to add, as formerly a businesswoman myself, I was, I think, relatively sure of the quality of my work. Sometimes it was excellent. I think in the business world, from which I spend my time, eventually I had to accept that my mother, who was the first woman in South Africa to be on the board of a company, had always said to me what you've said. And I thought that my business life would be that way. And certainly in the sector in which I worked in advertising, it took me a long time to realize, and I was well into my 40s when I woke up to the fact that it really didn't matter the excellence of what I was trying to do. And I think I didn't have your brilliant brain with science, that it didn't matter whether I was a woman or a man. It was much more subjective. And I wasn't doing well. It was only eventually when I had the huge good fortune at one stage to work for David, who is a person who goes off in the other direction and has aggressively promoted women, which is going the other way, that things changed for me. But I finished work on a sad note only less than a year ago, where I really felt in the business world that women are under-recognized, under-promoted, underpaid. And I don't think we're equal in the business world. That was my experience. Which doesn't negate a single thing you've said. But for me, in corporate, in the business world, the fight was on, except for the fact that I spent my last 10 years with an amazing boss, but I was just incredibly lucky with that. It's not the norm in our industry.
Yes, yes.
Would you please thank this brilliant panel? Whoa!
Fantastic. Woo!
Thank you. Wow.